I'm Dr. Rachel Morgan, an infectious disease specialist at St. Agnes Hospital, a place where I have dedicated the last decade of my career to controlling hospital-acquired infections. Our hospital, nestled in the heart of a bustling city, is known for its commitment to rigorous hygiene protocols and cutting-edge medical care. Yet, even in such a controlled environment, the unexpected can emerge, and that is precisely what happened one spring when a puzzling outbreak confined to a single room challenged everything we thought we knew about infection control. St. Agnes is a large tertiary care center with a busy infectious diseases ward that I oversee. Every day, we manage patients with infections ranging from routine urinary tract infections to complex multi-drug-resistant organisms. The ward hums with activity. Nurses meticulously follow sterile procedures. Cleaning staff diligently sanitize every surface, and the infection control team constantly monitors for any sign of lapses. We pride ourselves on our vigilance, and yet, sometimes, the invisible world of microbes and toxins reveals surprises that defy our protocols. The story began quietly in room 312, a private room on the third floor, usually assigned to patients needing isolation. The first patient admitted there that month was a middle-aged man named Mr. Thomas Blake, hospitalized for a routine surgical procedure complicated by a mild postoperative infection. His initial recovery was unremarkable, but within a few days he developed a constellation of symptoms that sent ripples through the ward. It started with a persistent fever that resisted our standard antipyretics, accompanied by severe fatigue that left Mr. Blake unable to sit up without assistance. More alarmingly, he began to exhibit subtle neurological signs: intermittent confusion, difficulty with fine motor tasks, and episodes of disorientation that puzzled the attending nurses and staff. These symptoms were unusual and did not fit the classic patterns of postoperative infections or known hospital pathogens. As the infectious disease consultant on call, I was called to assess him. Reviewing his chart and examining him carefully, I found no clear source for his fever. His surgical site was healing well, blood cultures were negative, and there were no signs of pneumonia or urinary tract infection. The neurological symptoms, while subtle, raised concerns about possible encephalitis or a toxic metabolic process. We ordered a battery of tests: MRI scans, cerebrospinal fluid analysis, extensive blood work, all designed to uncover any lurking infection or inflammatory process. Despite exhaustive testing over the next several days, the results yielded no definitive answers. Microbiological cultures from blood, urine, and cerebrospinal fluid remained negative. Viral panels, including tests for herpes, simplex virus, and enteroviruses, came back clean. Autoimmune markers were within normal limits. Even the temporally related neurological symptoms failed to correspond with known disease patterns. Our team was perplexed. The hospital environment itself was scrutinized. The nursing staff reported no breaches in sterile technique or hygiene protocols, and the cleaning logs for room 312 were meticulously maintained. I personally reviewed the environmental control records, including air filtration maintenance and surface disinfection schedules, which all appeared to be in strict compliance with hospital guidelines. The patient had no recent travel history and no known exposure to infectious agents outside the hospital. Mr. Blake's condition fluctuated unpredictably. Some days, his fever would subside briefly, and his cognitive function would improve, only to relapse with worsening fatigue and confusion. His family grew increasingly anxious, seeking answers that none of us could provide. I found myself spending long hours at his bedside, wrestling with the limitations of our knowledge and the growing unease that something was eluding us. As days turned into a week, the case of Mr. Blake became a subject of intense discussion among the infectious diseases team. We convened multiple meetings, poring over every detail of his history, laboratory results, and clinical presentation. Our usual diagnostic algorithms failed us. Could this be a novel pathogen, a toxic exposure, or an unusual immune-mediated process? The possibilities seemed endless and frustratingly vague. The situation took on an almost surreal quality. In a hospital renowned for its infection control, a single patient in a single room was manifesting a syndrome that defied all known causes. There was a palpable tension among the staff, a sense that we were facing an unseen adversary. I felt the weight of responsibility heavily. This patient was under my care, and I was determined to uncover the truth. I reached out to my colleagues in neurology and toxicology, seeking their insights. Neurologists confirmed the atypical nature of his symptoms, and toxicologists found no evidence of exposure to common neurotoxins or heavy metals. Infectious disease specialists from neighboring institutions offered to review the case remotely, but none could provide a definitive diagnosis. Throughout this time, I was acutely aware of the hospital's reputation and the potential implications of an unexplained illness emerging within its walls. Infection control teams are trained to identify outbreaks quickly, trace sources, and implement containment measures. Yet here we were, with a mystery confined to one room and one patient, a scenario that did not fit the standard models of hospital epidemics. The enigmatic nature of Mr. Blake's illness ignited a renewed sense of curiosity and determination within me. Medicine, I realized once again, is as much about humility as it is about knowledge. The invisible world of infectious agents and environmental hazards is vast and often unpredictable. Our protocols, no matter how stringent, cannot anticipate every eventuality. As I left his room one evening, watching the soft hum of the monitors and the flickering of the overhead lights, I was struck by the fragility of our understanding. Mr. Blake's case was a stark reminder that in the complex ecosystem of a hospital, even the most controlled environment can harbor secrets. Secrets that challenge our expertise and demand relentless inquiry. Little did I know then that this was only the beginning. The mystery confined to room 312 would soon deepen, drawing in a multidisciplinary team and forcing us to question not only our protocols, but the very nature of the unseen threats lurking in healthcare settings. For now, we stood at the threshold of an enigma, with one patient's unexplained illness as the first clue in a perplexing puzzle that would test our resolve and redefine our approach to infection control. The silence of room 312 held its secrets close, and I was determined to uncover them. The atmosphere on the infectious diseases ward at St. Agnes Hospital had always been one of controlled vigilance, a carefully orchestrated balance between rigorous protocols and compassionate care. But as the days passed after Mr. Blake's admission to room 312, that balance began to feel precarious, as if a subtle undercurrent was stirring beneath the surface, an unseen force challenging our most fundamental assumptions about safety and infection. The hospital itself is a labyrinth of hallways and rooms, each meticulously maintained under strict hygiene standards. Our cleaning staff follows detailed schedules, using hospital-grade disinfectants designed to eliminate a broad spectrum of pathogens. Air filtration systems are monitored and replaced regularly to prevent airborne contamination. Nurses and physicians alike adhere to hand hygiene protocols relentlessly. In such an environment, the emergence of an unexplained illness confined to a single room seemed almost impossible. Yet, it was in this seemingly sterile environment that the first patient's symptoms had taken root, and it was here that the mystery deepened. Mr. Blake's initial fever and fatigue were perplexing, but the neurological symptoms added a layer of complexity that none of us had anticipated. His confusion and disorientation fluctuated unpredictably, and no infectious or metabolic explanation emerged despite exhaustive testing. As I spent more time at his bedside, I became acutely aware of the subtle changes in the ward's atmosphere. Nurses whispered cautiously in corners, sharing concerns about what might be causing these strange symptoms. The usual rhythm of the ward was interrupted by additional monitoring and isolation precautions, but these felt like gestures of uncertainty rather than solutions. The staff's unease was palpable, and I found myself sharing their concerns even as I tried to maintain a calm and methodical approach. Then, just as we thought the puzzle was isolated to Mr. Blake, a new development sent a shockwave through our unit. A second patient was admitted to room 312, a middle-aged woman named Mrs. Evelyn Grant, recovering from a scheduled orthopedic procedure. Within days of her admission, she began exhibiting symptoms strikingly similar to Mr. Blake's: persistent fever, profound fatigue, and subtle but unmistakable neurological signs. Difficulty focusing, intermittent confusion, and tremors that had not been present before. This was no coincidence. The pattern was undeniable, and the fact that these symptoms were confined exclusively to patients in room 312 raised urgent questions about the environment itself. Patients in other rooms, often with similar underlying conditions and surgical histories, remained unaffected. The illness was localized, yet its origin remained elusive. I convened an emergency meeting with the infectious diseases team and hospital epidemiologists. We reviewed every facet of patient care in room 312: nursing assignments, medication administration, meal deliveries, cleaning schedules, and even the physical layout of the room. Nothing stood out as a clear source of exposure or contamination. We expanded our diagnostic efforts, ordering repeated cultures, advanced imaging, and toxicological screens for both patients, but again, results were inconclusive. The hospital's infection control protocols, already among the most stringent in our region, were scrutinized with renewed intensity. Hand hygiene compliance rates were audited and found to be near perfect. Personal protective equipment was used correctly. Environmental cleaning logs were impeccable, and air filtration systems had been recently serviced. It was as though the illness was emerging in defiance of all known safeguards. As the days unfolded, more patients assigned to room 312 began to fall ill. A third patient, a young man admitted for cardiac monitoring, developed the same constellation of symptoms. The pattern was relentless, and the ward staff grew increasingly anxious. The families of the affected patients gathered in small groups near the nurse's station, their faces etched with worry. They demanded answers, explanations, and assurances that their loved ones were not in danger. I found myself caught between the mounting pressure from families and the frustrating absence of answers. Each new case intensified the sense of urgency and uncertainty. The hospital's reputation was at stake, and I felt the weight of responsibility settling heavily on my shoulders. Every morning, I walked into room 312 with a mixture of determination and trepidation, knowing that the invisible threat within its walls remained uncharted territory. The clinical presentation puzzled us all. The combination of fever and neurological symptoms did not fit neatly into any known infectious syndrome. The patient's vital signs were stable, and there were no signs of systemic organ failure. Yet their cognitive function fluctuated unpredictably, and their fatigue was profound. Standard antimicrobial therapies had no effect, and the usual markers of infection remained absent. Our team expanded our investigations beyond the usual suspects. We explored the possibility of environmental toxins, considering whether a chemical exposure within the room might be responsible. We collected samples from surfaces, water sources, and air filters, sending them to specialized laboratories for analysis. Yet, these tests yielded no definitive clues. Throughout this time, I remained in close contact with the patients' families. Their fear was understandable, and their need for reassurance palpable. I shared with them the steps we were taking, the uncertainties we faced, and my commitment to uncovering the truth. Their trust in our care was both humbling and motivating, reminding me of the human dimension behind this medical mystery. The hospital administration became involved as well, convening meetings to discuss potential containment measures and communication strategies. We prepared for the possibility that this illness might represent an emerging threat, one that could extend beyond room 312 if left unchecked. Precautionary measures were implemented, including enhanced environmental cleaning and restricted access to the affected room. Despite these efforts, the illness remained confined to room 312, a baffling phenomenon that defied conventional epidemiological patterns. The notion that an outbreak could be so geographically limited within a hospital was unprecedented in my experience. It challenged our understanding of pathogen transmission environmental contamination, and infection control. As I reflected on these developments, I was struck by the delicate interplay between the hospital's physical environment and the patients it serves. The invisible world of microbes and toxins, the unseen pathways of exposure, and the fragile human body's response to these forces, all converged in this small, unassuming room. The sense of mystery deepened with each new case, and I found myself questioning whether our protocols, as rigorous as they were, had blind spots we had yet to identify. Could there be an unknown agent, a rare contaminant, or a hidden environmental hazard lurking within the walls? Was this a new disease, entity, or a manifestation of something long overlooked? In the midst of these questions, the patients continued to suffer. Their symptoms waxed and waned. Their families watched over them with growing concern, and the hospital staff grappled with the uncertainty that now permeated the ward. The usual certainties of medicine, the predictable courses and familiar pathogens, seemed to evade us. For me, this experience underscored the profound complexity of infectious diseases and hospital epidemiology. It highlighted the limitations of our knowledge and the importance of maintaining an open mind when confronting unexplained illnesses. The challenge was no longer just clinical but also deeply human. How to care for patients and families in the face of uncertainty, how to lead a team through uncharted territory, and how to balance hope with realism. As I stood once again outside room 312, the door closed behind me like a barrier between the known and the unknown. I felt the weight of responsibility more keenly than ever. The mysterious illness was no longer just a puzzle confined to one patient. It had become a haunting presence that demanded answers, collaboration, and relentless pursuit of the truth. The hospital's walls had always been a sanctuary of healing, but within that sanctuary, something was stirring, something that would soon compel us to rethink what we thought possible in infection control and patient care. For now, the mystery remained, confined yet unsettling, a silent storm gathering strength within the confines of room 312. The perplexing cluster of illnesses confined to room 312 at St. Agnes Hospital had grown beyond a clinical curiosity into a full-blown challenge to everything we understood about infection control. As the number of patients exhibiting fever, fatigue, and neurological symptoms increased, the urgency to identify a cause intensified. Our multidisciplinary team was mobilized, and I found myself leading a series of exhaustive investigations that, despite their thoroughness, only deepened the mystery. From the outset, our diagnostic efforts were comprehensive. Blood cultures, cerebrospinal fluid analyses, and extensive viral panels were repeated, yet they consistently returned negative or inconclusive. We tested for a broad array of infectious agents, bacteria, viruses, fungi, and even parasites, but none fit the clinical picture. The patient's symptoms did not correspond with any known hospital-acquired infections, and no antimicrobial treatment yielded improvement. Laboratory microbiologists grew frustrated alongside us. They meticulously examined every sample, using advanced culture techniques and molecular diagnostics, including polymerase chain reaction assays designed to detect minute traces of pathogens. Yet, despite these cutting-edge methods, no organism was isolated. It was as if the illness had no microbial footprint, a ghost infection that eluded detection. In parallel, toxicologists were consulted to explore environmental and chemical causes. We collected swabs from surfaces, taps, medical equipment, and air filters in room 312, sending samples to specialized laboratories that tested for heavy metals, volatile organic compounds, and industrial toxins. But again, the results were unremarkable, showing no abnormal concentrations or contaminants. Neurologists evaluated the patient's symptoms extensively. Electroencephalograms, brain MRIs, and neuropsychological assessments revealed subtle but nonspecific abnormalities, mild encephalopathy, slight cortical dysfunction, that failed to clarify the etiology. No evidence of autoimmune encephalitis, metabolic derangements, or paraneoplastic syndromes emerged. It was a clinical conundrum that resisted categorization. The hospital's infection control team conducted a meticulous review of all protocols. Hand hygiene compliance was audited with electronic monitoring, revealing consistently high adherence rates. The cleaning crew's logs were scrutinized and their techniques reassessed. All cleaning agents used were approved and their application documented. The ventilation systems servicing room 312 had undergone routine maintenance just weeks prior, and filters were replaced on schedule. Despite this, a chilling question began to take shape. Was there a hidden factor, something undetected by routine surveillance, lurking within the very environment patients occupied? To address this, we enlisted environmental engineers to perform an in-depth assessment of room 312's physical infrastructure. They measured airflow patterns, humidity levels, and tested for mold spores and microbial biofilms in ductwork and water sources. Their initial reports were inconclusive. No evidence of mold proliferation or water contamination was found. Air quality tests fell within acceptable ranges, and pressure differentials in the room were appropriate for an isolation environment. Yet, the persistence of illness in successive patients occupying the same space suggested a localized hazard that had evaded detection. To widen our investigative net, we partnered with external laboratories and public health agencies. Samples were sent to national reference centers equipped with sophisticated analytic tools. We hoped that fresh perspectives and advanced technologies might uncover subtle clues missed in our initial assessments. Meanwhile, the affected patients' clinical courses remained erratic. Some experienced transient improvements, only to relapse with worsening neurological symptoms and debilitating fatigue. Supportive care was the mainstay of treatment, as no specific therapy existed for this enigmatic condition. Families stayed at their loved ones' sides, their anxiety mounting with each passing day. The hospital administration grew increasingly concerned. Meetings were held to discuss potential containment strategies and communication plans. Media interest was anticipated but not yet realized. Internally, staff morale fluctuated between determination and apprehension, as the unknown nature of the illness fostered unease. At times, I questioned whether we were facing a novel infectious agent, perhaps one not yet described in medical literature. Alternatively, could this be an unusual manifestation of a known pathogen, altered by the hospital environment or host factors? Or was it an entirely new clinical syndrome, driven by non-infectious mechanisms, such as chemical exposure or an immune-mediated process triggered by an unidentified stimulus? The complexity of the situation demanded that we remain open to all possibilities. Yet, the absence of definitive evidence challenged our ability to take targeted action. We reinforced standard precautions, but without a clear source, there was little more we could do to prevent further cases. Throughout this ordeal, I was acutely aware of the emotional toll on patients, their families, and the healthcare team. The uncertainty bred fear and frustration, highlighting the human cost of medical mysteries. I made it a point to communicate openly with families, sharing what we knew and what remained unknown, acknowledging the limits of our understanding while assuring them of our unwavering commitment. This experience underscored the limitations of even the most advanced diagnostics. It reminded me that medicine is as much an art as a science, requiring patience, persistence, and humility. The invisible world of pathogens and toxins is vast, and our current tools, though powerful, are not infallible. As the days wore on, the illness confined to room 312 remained a riddle without a solution. The patient's symptoms persisted, and the pattern of new cases continued. The hospital's reputation for safety and cleanliness was challenged by an invisible adversary that defied detection. Yet, amidst the uncertainty, our team remained resolute. We expanded surveillance to monitor for similar cases elsewhere in the hospital, and contingency plans were developed for potential escalation. We forged stronger collaborations with external experts, hoping that fresh insights would emerge. In the quiet moments between rounds, I reflected on the fragility of human health and the mysteries that still elude our grasp. Mr. Blake, Mrs. Grant, and the others were more than clinical cases. They were individuals caught in the crosshairs of an elusive threat. Their courage and the dedication of the staff caring for them inspired me to persevere. This chapter of the unfolding story at St. Agnes Hospital was marked by exhaustive efforts met with perplexing silence from our diagnostic tools. It was a humbling reminder that medicine is a continuous journey toward understanding, where sometimes the most important discoveries arise from confronting the unknown with relentless curiosity and compassion. The unsettling pattern of illness confined to room 312 at St. Agnes Hospital deepened in the weeks following our exhaustive investigations. Despite our best efforts, the mystery remained unresolved, and new cases continued to emerge, all linked by a common thread: their occupancy of this single, unassuming room. The fact that no patients in neighboring rooms or elsewhere in the hospital exhibited similar symptoms only heightened the sense of urgency and bewilderment. As the cluster of affected patients grew, the clinical presentations were remarkably consistent. Persistent fevers unresponsive to typical antipyretics, profound fatigue that left individuals bedridden, and subtle but unmistakable neurological disturbances. These included intermittent confusion, difficulty concentrating, and occasional tremors. Yet, routine diagnostic tests persisted in revealing no explanation. The ward's atmosphere shifted palpably. Where once there had been quiet confidence in our infection control measures, now there was an undercurrent of apprehension. Staff members exchanged worried glances during handovers, and conversations in the nurses' station often circled back to room 312. The patients' families, initially trusting and composed, grew increasingly anxious, their questions growing more urgent and frequent. They sought reassurance that their loved ones were safe and that we understood what was unfolding. I found myself drawn ever closer to the unfolding drama, spending long hours coordinating care, reviewing data, and communicating with families. The emotional weight was heavy, not only for the patients but also for the healthcare team navigating this uncharted territory. The usual certainties of diagnosis and treatment felt elusive, replaced by a growing need to probe deeper into the unknown. Remarkably, the illness remained stubbornly localized. Patients admitted to room 312 developed symptoms, while those in adjacent rooms or other parts of the hospital remained unaffected. This confinement begged the question, what was unique about this room that could explain the phenomenon? We began to scrutinize the hospital environment with renewed focus. The physical space of room 312 was examined meticulously. Environmental engineers mapped airflow patterns, noting how ventilation systems were designed to limit cross-contamination and maintain negative pressure. Yet, despite these safeguards, the room seemed to harbor a hidden threat. Surface swabs and water samples were collected repeatedly, tested for microbial contamination and chemical toxins. We expanded testing to include residues from cleaning agents, potential allergens, and even airborne particulates. Each test, however, returned results within expected parameters. The room was, by all conventional measures, clean and safe. The possibility of an airborne agent gained traction. We considered whether a volatile chemical or pathogen, undetectable by standard testing, might be concentrated within the room's microenvironment. Could there be an undiagnosed mold growing within ventilation ducts? Was there a leak of an industrial chemical or gas that escaped detection during routine inspections? To explore these hypotheses, we enlisted the help of environmental health specialists who employed advanced detection equipment capable of sensing trace gases and particulates. They conducted continuous air sampling over several days, searching for anomalies. Yet, the data remained inconclusive. No abnormal levels of known toxins or particulates were found. Simultaneously, we reviewed the hospital's cleaning and maintenance protocols specific to room 312. Cleaning staff followed strict schedules, using hospital-approved disinfectants. Maintenance records indicated recent repairs to plumbing fixtures and electrical systems, but nothing out of the ordinary. No changes had been made to cleaning products or procedures in the weeks preceding the outbreak. The human factor was considered as well. We examined whether staff assignments could have contributed to transmission or exposure. However, staff rotations were consistent with other rooms, and no breaches in protocol were identified. No staff members themselves exhibited symptoms, nor did they report unusual exposures. As new patients continued to develop the same symptoms upon admission to room 312, the connection to the room's environment solidified. Yet, the source remained elusive. This paradox challenged conventional wisdom. How could an illness so clearly linked to a specific location resist explanation despite our extensive efforts? The hospital's leadership recognized the gravity of the situation. Meetings were convened to discuss operational implications and contingency plans. Access to room 312 was restricted to essential personnel, and enhanced cleaning protocols were implemented. However, without a known source, these measures felt more precautionary than curative. The patients' families grew more vocal, their concerns echoing through the corridors. They wanted transparency and answers, fearing for the safety of their loved ones and the potential for spread. I committed to keeping them informed, acknowledging the limits of our knowledge while expressing our resolve to find solutions. Throughout these developments, I was struck by the resilience of the patients. Despite debilitating symptoms, they faced their uncertain journeys with quiet courage. Their experiences underscored the human dimension of this medical enigma, reminding me that behind every clinical mystery are lives profoundly affected. As the weeks stretched on, the mystery of room 312 deepened. The illness's confinement to a single room defied typical patterns of hospital-acquired infections, which usually involve broader transmission pathways. This anomaly forced us to reconsider our assumptions about the hospital environment as a whole. The possibility that an unconventional factor was at play, an environmental toxin, an undetected microorganism, or a novel airborne agent, loomed large. Our investigations had yet to uncover it, but the persistence of the illness demanded we continue probing every avenue. In quiet moments, I found myself reflecting on the delicate interplay between patients, pathogens, and the environments they inhabit. Hospitals are designed to be sanctuaries of healing, but they're also complex ecosystems where unseen interactions can produce unexpected outcomes. The unfolding situation in room 312 had become a crucible for our hospital's expertise and resilience. It challenged us to think beyond established protocols and to collaborate across disciplines in pursuit of answers. Infection control specialists, environmental engineers, epidemiologists, and clinicians all joined forces, united by a shared mission. The uncertainty weighed heavily, but also galvanized our team. We were reminded that medicine is an ever-evolving field, where vigilance, curiosity, and humility are essential. The story unfolding in room 312 was no longer just a clinical puzzle. It was a profound lesson in the complexities of healthcare and the enduring challenges posed by the unseen world. As I prepared for another round of patient assessments, I carried with me the resolve to uncover the truth hidden within those four walls. The answers were out there, waiting to be found, and I was determined that room 312 would no longer be a place of mystery, but a place of healing once more. As the mysterious illness confined to room 312 continued to perplex us, it became clear that solving this enigma required more than the efforts of a single department. The complexity of the situation demanded a multidisciplinary approach, one that brought together diverse expertise beyond infectious diseases alone. In response, the hospital convened a task force composed of infection control specialists, environmental engineers, epidemiologists, neurologists, and toxicologists. Together, we formed a united front, determined to unravel the origins of this baffling outbreak. The formation of the task force marked a pivotal moment in our investigation. Each member brought a unique perspective, and our weekly meetings became forums for rigorous discussion and hypothesis testing. Infection control experts reviewed protocols and compliance data, Environmental engineers conducted comprehensive assessments of the physical infrastructure, and epidemiologists analyzed patterns of illness onset and progression. Toxicologists evaluated potential chemical exposures, while neurologists continued to monitor the patient's evolving symptoms. We also acknowledged the vital role of the patient's families, whose growing anxiety and concern could not be ignored. Their involvement added a poignant human dimension to our work. Regular communication channels were established, allowing families to express their fears, ask questions, and receive updates on the investigation's progress. Their trust was both a privilege and a responsibility, reminding us that behind the clinical data were individuals whose lives were deeply affected. The task force undertook a systematic review of every conceivable variable related to Room 312. Environmental engineers mapped the room's air circulation using smoke tests and advanced sensors, seeking hidden pockets of stagnant air or unexpected airflow patterns that might concentrate contaminants. They inspected ventilation ducts, plumbing systems, and electrical conduits for signs of wear, leaks, or contamination. Despite these meticulous efforts, no obvious environmental hazard emerged. Infection control specialists expanded surveillance beyond the immediate vicinity, monitoring adjacent wards and hospital units for any signs of similar illnesses. Staff schedules were cross-referenced with patient timelines to detect potential vectors of transmission, but no consistent links were found. Hand hygiene audits and adherence to personal protective equipment protocols remained exemplary. Epidemiologists analyzed the timing and sequence of cases, searching for clues in incubation periods and exposure histories. They constructed detailed timelines for each patient, looking for overlapping events or exposures outside of Room 312. Interviews with staff and families sought to uncover any commonalities that might have been overlooked. Yet, the illness remained stubbornly localized, with no cases emerging elsewhere. Parallel to these efforts, toxicologists conducted extensive chemical analyses of samples from Room 312 and its surroundings. They tested for volatile organic compounds, heavy metals, pesticides, and industrial chemicals that could cause neurological symptoms. Advanced mass spectrometry and chromatography techniques were employed to detect trace substances. All results returned within normal limits, offering no definitive explanation. Throughout this intensive investigation, the patient's conditions continued to fluctuate. Some experienced transient improvements, but overall, their symptoms persisted. Neurologists documented subtle changes in cognitive function and motor control, though no progressive decline was evident. Supportive care remained the cornerstone of treatment, while we awaited further insights. The emotional toll on the healthcare team was significant. Staff members grappled with uncertainty, balancing their commitment to patient care with the frustration of an unresolved mystery. Debriefing sessions provided opportunities to share concerns and maintain morale. The hospital administration offered additional resources, recognizing the need for sustained support. Families became active participants in the search for answers. Some requested involvement in decision-making processes, while others organized informal support groups. Their advocacy underscored the importance of transparency and empathy in managing complex medical crises. We endeavored to honor their trust by communicating openly, even when definitive answers were elusive. As weeks turned into months, the task force refined its investigative strategies. We explored unconventional hypotheses, considering the possibility of a novel pathogen or a previously unrecognized environmental agent. Collaborations with external research institutions and public health authorities were intensified, leveraging broader expertise and resources. The hospital's commitment to addressing this outbreak extended beyond the technical. Training sessions were held to reinforce infection control principles, emphasizing vigilance and adaptability. Staff were encouraged to report unusual findings promptly, fostering a culture of continuous learning and responsiveness. Despite the challenges, a spirit of determination pervaded the task force. Each meeting, each analysis, brought us closer to understanding the complex interplay of factors at work. The mystery of Room 312 was no longer a solitary puzzle. It was a multidisciplinary endeavor that exemplified the collaborative nature of modern medicine. In reflecting on this phase of the investigation, I was struck by the profound interconnectedness of science, empathy, and perseverance. The family's resilience, the staff's dedication, and the collective expertise of the task force formed a formidable alliance against an invisible adversary. Together, we navigated the uncertainty, propelled by the shared goal of restoring health and safety. The journey was far from over. New questions emerged, and the search for definitive answers continued. Yet the establishment of the task force and the involvement of diverse specialists marked a significant step forward. It reinforced the principle that confronting unknown medical threats requires not only scientific rigor, but also compassion and collaboration. As we moved into the next phase of our inquiry, I remained committed to leading with both resolve and humility. The experience underscored the essential truth that medicine is a dynamic field, shaped by the challenges it encounters and the dedication of those who confront them. The story of Room 312 was unfolding, and with it, our understanding of the intricate relationship between environment, infection, and human vulnerability deepened. Despite the concerted efforts of our multidisciplinary task force, the mysterious illness confined to Room 312 at St. Agnes Hospital stubbornly resisted explanation. Weeks of exhaustive testing, environmental assessments, and epidemiological analyses had yielded no definitive source or cause. Faced with this impasse, we began to confront the unsettling limits of our current knowledge and protocols, a humbling realization that forced us to look beyond conventional frameworks. Our infection control measures, though rigorous and meticulously implemented, seemed inadequate to account for this anomaly. The standard models of pathogen transmission, contact, droplet, airborne, did not fully explain the confinement of illness to a single room. We had ruled out common hospital-acquired infections, environmental toxins detectable by current assays, and lapses in hygiene practices. Yet the cluster persisted. This paradox compelled us to consider more unconventional possibilities. Could there be a previously unrecognized environmental factor localized within Room 312? Perhaps an airborne agent so subtle it eluded standard detection methods? Or a chemical contaminant present in trace amounts, below the thresholds of routine testing, yet biologically active enough to cause neurological symptoms? Our environmental engineers revisited the room's ventilation system with renewed scrutiny. Utilizing advanced aerosol sampling and gas chromatography, they searched for volatile organic compounds or microbial metabolites that might have been missed. Attention was drawn to the possibility of bioaerosols, microscopic particles that could harbor bacteria or fungi in a dormant or atypical state, eluding culture-based diagnostics. Simultaneously, toxicologists expanded their investigations to include emerging contaminants, synthetic chemicals used in hospital materials, cleaning agents, or even patient care products. Substances such as phthalates, flame retardants, and ultrafine particulates have been linked in other contexts to neurological effects, but were seldom monitored in healthcare settings. We collected air and surface samples to test for these compounds, employing mass spectrometry with heightened sensitivity. Despite these advanced techniques, definitive findings remained elusive. The thresholds of detection and the biological relevance of trace contaminants presented interpretative challenges. Were the low-level substances detected incidental, or could they be causative? The ambiguity underscored the complexity of environmental health within hospital ecosystems. Beyond environmental factors, we contemplated the role of host susceptibility. Could the patient's underlying health conditions, medications, or genetic predispositions interact with subtle environmental exposures to produce this unique syndrome? This hypothesis prompted genomic analyses and immunological profiling in collaboration with research institutions specializing in neuroimmunology. These investigations revealed intriguing patterns, but no conclusive answers. Variations in immune response markers suggested heightened sensitivity in some patients, but the sample size was small and causality remained speculative. The interplay between environment and host immunity emerged as a fertile ground for further exploration. As these scientific inquiries unfolded, the hospital's leadership grappled with practical implications. Our confidence in existing protocols was shaken, and questions arose about whether additional safeguards or novel monitoring systems were warranted. The balance between maintaining stringent infection control and acknowledging the limits of our knowledge became a focal point of discussion. Staff training sessions were intensified, emphasizing not only adherence to established protocols, but also the importance of vigilance for atypical presentations and environmental anomalies. A culture of open communication was fostered, encouraging frontline workers to report unusual observations without fear of reprisal. The psychological impact on healthcare workers was palpable. Feelings of uncertainty and frustration mingled with determination. Debriefings and support services were made available to address the emotional toll of managing an unresolved outbreak. Recognizing that human factors are integral to patient safety, we sought to nurture resilience and teamwork. Throughout this period, I found myself reflecting deeply on the nature of medical knowledge. The hospital, a place designed to heal and protect, was also a complex ecosystem where unseen forces could converge unpredictably. Our protocols, though grounded in evidence and experience, were not infallible. The illness in room 312 was a stark reminder that the boundaries of understanding are continually tested by emerging challenges. Equally humbling was the realization that uncertainty is an inherent part of medicine. The desire for clear answers must be balanced with patience and openness to new possibilities. This experience reaffirmed the need for humility, the recognition that even the most advanced systems and expertise may encounter enigmas beyond current grasp. The patients remained at the heart of this journey. Their symptoms persisted, their families' anxiety grew, and their trust became a beacon guiding our efforts. I was reminded daily that beyond the scientific quest lay the human imperative to provide compassionate care amid uncertainty. As we continued our investigations, we broadened collaborations with external experts in environmental health, microbiology, and neurology. The pursuit of knowledge transcended departmental boundaries, reflecting the interconnectedness of the challenge. New hypotheses were formulated and research protocols designed, with the hope that ongoing studies might illuminate the underlying mechanisms. In embracing the limits of our protocols and knowledge, we found renewed motivation to innovate. The outbreak in room 312 catalyzed efforts to develop enhanced environmental monitoring technologies, integrate genomic and immunologic patient profiling into routine care, and foster interdisciplinary research initiatives. This chapter of the outbreak underscored a vital lesson. Vigilance must extend beyond adherence to established guidelines. It requires a mindset attuned to the unexpected, a willingness to question assumptions, and a commitment to continuous learning. Only through such an approach can we hope to confront the evolving landscape of healthcare challenges. As I stood once again outside the door of room 312, the locus of so much uncertainty, I felt both the weight of responsibility and the spark of resolve. The unseen adversary within those walls had revealed the fragility of certainty and the necessity of humility. It was a call to deepen our inquiry, broaden our perspectives, and strengthen our dedication to patient safety. The journey ahead was daunting, but it was also an opportunity, a challenge to expand the horizons of medicine and environmental health. Room 312 had become more than a site of illness. It was a crucible for transformation, pushing us to confront the unknown with courage and collaboration. In the midst of our relentless investigation into the mysterious illness confined to room 312, an abrupt and harrowing event jolted the entire hospital. One of the patients, a middle-aged woman named Mrs. Evelyn Grant, experienced a sudden and dramatic deterioration in her condition. Her neurological symptoms escalated rapidly. She became unresponsive and developed signs suggestive of acute encephalopathy. The rapid progression sent a ripple of alarm through the medical team, and forced us into emergency action. Mrs. Grant's collapse occurred late one evening, when the ward was quieter but no less vigilant. The rapid response team was summoned immediately. We worked swiftly to stabilize her airway, breathing, and circulation, while simultaneously initiating diagnostic assessments to determine the cause of her sudden decline. The gravity of the situation underscored the urgency of our broader investigation. This was no longer a slow, perplexing mystery, but a potential crisis demanding immediate answers. During the emergency response, a fresh perspective emerged. While reviewing the environmental assessments and recent samples from room 312, one of the environmental engineers recalled subtle anomalies detected in the room's ventilation system. Minute fluctuations in airflow and traces of an unusual compound identified in preliminary analyses. Though initially considered inconsequential, these findings took on new significance in light of Mrs. Grant's acute deterioration. Prompted by this insight, we expedited a comprehensive examination of the ventilation ducts servicing room 312. Utilizing fiber optic cameras and swab sampling, the environmental team inspected air filters, duct surfaces, and adjacent mechanical components. It was during this detailed evaluation that a critical discovery was made. A rare contaminant, a volatile organic compound not typically associated with hospital environments, was detected in the ventilation system serving room 312. The compound, identified as a solvent derivative used in certain industrial adhesives, was present in trace amounts, but at concentrations sufficient to raise concern. Its neurotoxic potential was documented in occupational health literature, but had never before been implicated in a hospital outbreak. The source of the contaminant was traced to a maintenance project conducted several weeks earlier in a nearby utility area, where adhesives had been used during repair work. This breakthrough offered the first concrete clue in a case that had long defied explanation. The presence of this solvent in the ventilation system provided a plausible mechanism for the localized neurological symptoms observed in patients occupying room 312. It suggested that intermittent exposure to airborne traces of this compound might have been responsible for the constellation of fever, fatigue, and neurological disturbances. Armed with this new information, we took immediate action to mitigate the risk. The ventilation system was shut down temporarily, and a comprehensive decontamination process was initiated. Air filters were replaced, ductwork was thoroughly cleaned using specialized industrial methods, and continuous air quality monitoring was established to ensure the removal of the contaminant. Mrs. Grant, despite her critical condition, began to show signs of stabilization following removal from the exposure source and supportive care. Her neurological status improved gradually over the following days, offering a glimmer of hope amid the uncertainty. Other patients in room 312 were relocated as a precaution, and no new cases emerged after these interventions. The discovery of the solvent contaminant transformed the trajectory of our investigation. It highlighted the vulnerability of hospital environments to unexpected hazards arising from routine maintenance activities. It also underscored the importance of interdisciplinary collaboration. Without the combined expertise of environmental engineers, infection control specialists, and clinicians, this critical clue might have remained hidden. This episode prompted a thorough review of hospital maintenance protocols. Procedures for the use, storage, and ventilation of industrial chemicals were revised to prevent future contamination. Staff involved in maintenance received enhanced training on occupational safety and environmental risk mitigation. Furthermore, communication channels between clinical teams and facilities management were strengthened to facilitate rapid identification and response to potential environmental hazards. The emotional impact of Mrs. Grant's sudden illness and subsequent recovery resonated deeply among staff and families alike. It was a stark reminder of the real, human consequences of environmental factors often overlooked in healthcare settings. For me, personally, it emphasized the need to maintain vigilance not only against infectious threats, but also against insidious chemical exposures. As the hospital worked to restore the safety and confidence of patients and staff, the broader implications of this discovery reverberated beyond our walls. It sparked discussions within the wider medical community about the potential for environmental contaminants to masquerade as infectious outbreaks and the necessity of comprehensive environmental assessments in unusual clinical scenarios. Reflecting on this critical juncture in the outbreak, I was reminded of the unpredictable nature of medicine and the humility required to confront the unknown. The breakthrough came not through a single test or specialist, but through the convergence of diverse expertise and the willingness to reconsider assumptions. The incident reinforced the essential principle that hospitals are complex ecosystems where clinical care intersects with environmental stewardship. Protecting patients requires attention to every facet of this environment, from microbial pathogens to chemical agents and everything in between. As we continued to care for Mrs. Grant and the other affected patients, our focus sharpened on prevention and preparedness. The ventilation system in room 312 remained offline, pending complete remediation, and ongoing monitoring ensured no residual contaminants persisted. Protocols were established to evaluate environmental risks proactively, integrating these assessments into routine hospital safety practices. This chapter in the story of room 312 marked a turning point, a moment when crisis illuminated the path toward resolution. It was a testament to the power of interdisciplinary collaboration, vigilance, and the relentless pursuit of answers in the face of uncertainty. Yet, even as progress was made, questions lingered. The exact mechanisms by which low-level solvent exposure produced the observed clinical syndrome required further investigation. The long-term effects on affected patients remained to be studied, and the broader implications for hospital design and maintenance policies called for continued attention. For me, this experience deepened my appreciation for the intricate interplay between environment and health. It challenged me to broaden my perspective beyond traditional infectious disease paradigms and to embrace a more holistic approach to patient safety. The story of room 312 was no longer just a mystery confined to a single room. It had become a catalyst for change, a reminder that sometimes the most elusive threats are those we least expect. It reinforced the enduring truth that in medicine, as in life, breakthroughs often arise from vigilance, collaboration, and the courage to look beyond the obvious. The discovery of the solvent contaminant in room 312's ventilation system had marked a pivotal breakthrough in our investigation. Yet it also opened a new chapter filled with complex questions and uncertainties. As we moved swiftly to remediate the contamination and stabilize affected patients, the deeper nature of this rare environmental hazard demanded further exploration. Our efforts evolved from immediate crisis management into a nuanced inquiry, involving specialized testing and collaboration with external laboratories and experts. Following the initial identification of the solvent, a volatile organic compound linked to industrial adhesives, we engaged occupational health specialists and environmental toxicologists with expertise in chemical exposures. Their task was to characterize the contaminant's properties, potential health effects, and behavior within hospital environments. Samples from the ventilation system and air within room 312 were sent to state-of-the-art laboratories equipped with high-resolution mass spectrometry and gas chromatography mass spectrometry (GCMS) capabilities. These advanced analyses confirmed the presence of the contaminant at trace levels, fluctuating over time and influenced by ventilation patterns and maintenance activities. While the concentrations detected were below established occupational exposure limits, the unique vulnerability of hospitalized patients, many with compromised health and neurological sensitivity, suggested that even low-level exposure might have outsized effects. Parallel to chemical analyses, we initiated epidemiological studies to understand the illness's pathology and clinical manifestations more precisely. Neurologists and infectious disease specialists collaborated with researchers to perform detailed neurocognitive testing, brain imaging, and immunologic profiling of affected patients. Blood and cerebrospinal fluid samples underwent molecular analyses to detect biomarkers of neurotoxicity and inflammation. The findings painted a complex picture. Patients exhibited signs of mild to moderate encephalopathy characterized by transient cognitive deficits and subtle motor impairments. Biomarkers indicated neuroinflammation, but no evidence of infectious agents or autoimmune processes was found. The clinical syndrome appeared consistent with toxic encephalopathy, a diagnosis rarely reported in hospital settings but well documented in industrial exposures. Despite these insights, many questions lingered. The precise mechanisms by which intermittent, low-level exposure to the solvent produced the observed neurological symptoms remained elusive. Individual patient susceptibility varied, suggesting that genetic and immunologic factors might modulate response. Moreover, the long-term consequences of exposure were unknown, raising concerns about potential chronic effects. To address these uncertainties, we established collaborations with academic research centers specializing in neurotoxicology and environmental health. Together, we designed longitudinal studies to monitor affected patients over months and years, aiming to track recovery trajectories and identify any persistent deficits. We also developed protocols to assess genetic polymorphisms and immune profiles that might confer increased vulnerability. In parallel, we worked closely with hospital engineers and facilities management to implement comprehensive remediation measures. The ventilation system underwent thorough cleaning, filter replacements, and redesign to prevent recurrence. Air quality monitoring protocols were enhanced, incorporating real-time detection of volatile organic compounds and continuous surveillance in sensitive patient areas. The hospital's infection control and safety committees integrated the lessons learned into revised policies. Maintenance projects involving chemical agents now required rigorous risk assessments, environmental monitoring, and coordination with clinical teams. Staff training emphasized awareness of potential chemical hazards and prompt reporting of unusual patient symptoms. Throughout this phase, communication remained a priority. We maintained open dialogue with patients and families, sharing emerging findings and addressing concerns with transparency. Support services, including neuropsychological counseling and rehabilitation, were made available to those affected. Despite progress, the situation underscored the limitations of current knowledge and technology. Detecting and interpreting low-level environmental exposures in complex healthcare settings posed significant challenges. It highlighted gaps in regulatory frameworks, which often focused on occupational exposures rather than vulnerable patient populations. The experience also revealed the necessity of interdisciplinary collaboration. No single specialty could unravel the multifaceted nature of this outbreak. Instead, it required the combined efforts of clinicians, environmental scientists, toxicologists, engineers, and researchers drawing on diverse expertise. As I reflected on these developments, I was reminded of the delicate balance between environment and health within hospitals. The very systems designed to promote healing could, under certain circumstances, harbor hidden dangers. Vigilance, adaptability, and continuous learning emerged as essential components of patient safety. The ongoing investigations reinforced the importance of humility in medicine. Even with advanced technologies and protocols, some phenomena remain partially understood, demanding patience and persistence. The desire for definitive answers must be tempered with acknowledgement of uncertainty and commitment to inquiry. For the patients of room 312, the journey continued. Some experienced gradual improvement, while others faced lingering symptoms requiring rehabilitation. Their resilience inspired the team, fueling our dedication to uncovering the full scope of the illness and preventing future occurrences. The hospital, too, was transformed. The outbreak catalyzed enhancements in environmental monitoring, maintenance practices, and interdisciplinary collaboration. It fostered a culture of heightened awareness and responsiveness to subtle environmental health risks. Looking forward, we committed to sharing our experiences and findings with the broader medical community. By disseminating knowledge about this rare and complex outbreak, We aim to raise awareness and inform best practices globally. The story of Room 312 had evolved from an enigmatic cluster of symptoms into a profound exploration of the intersection between environment, medicine, and patient safety. It reminded us that healthcare is an ever-changing landscape, where vigilance and collaboration are vital to confronting the unknown. As we continued our work, I remained deeply aware that each step forward was built on the courage of patients, the dedication of colleagues, and the collective pursuit of understanding. The journey was ongoing, marked by challenges and discoveries, and defined by the unwavering commitment to healing and protection. The haunting outbreak, confined to Room 312, had left an indelible mark on St. Agnes Hospital, prompting a profound re-examination of our environmental safety protocols and the culture that underpins patient care. As the immediate crisis subsided and the source of the illness was identified and addressed, the hospital undertook a comprehensive review aimed at preventing future occurrences and restoring confidence among staff, patients, and families. The review process was exhaustive, involving stakeholders across all levels of the institution. Facilities management, infection control, clinical departments, and administrative leadership collaborated to scrutinize every facet of hospital operations related to environmental safety. We revisited maintenance procedures, chemical handling policies, ventilation system design, and environmental monitoring practices with newfound rigor. One of the most significant outcomes was the overhaul of our maintenance protocols. Previously, routine repairs and upgrades often proceeded with minimal input from clinical teams or environmental health experts. After the outbreak, we established a formalized system requiring risk assessments for any maintenance activity involving chemical agents or potential environmental hazards. This system mandated interdisciplinary consultation before work commenced, ensuring that patient safety considerations were integral to planning. Ventilation systems, a central focus of the investigation, were upgraded extensively. We installed advanced air filtration technologies capable of capturing a broader range of airborne contaminants, including volatile organic compounds and ultrafine particles. Continuous air quality monitoring devices were deployed in sensitive patient care areas, providing real-time data to facilities managers and infection control teams. Alerts were configured to prompt immediate investigation of any deviations from established safety thresholds. Environmental monitoring protocols were expanded beyond traditional microbial surveillance to include periodic chemical and particulate assessments. These measures aim to detect potential hazards early, before they could impact patients or staff. Training programs were developed to educate clinical and environmental staff on recognizing signs of environmental contamination and reporting concerns promptly. The emotional toll of the outbreak on hospital staff was addressed through enhanced support systems. Recognizing the stress and uncertainty experienced by caregivers, we implemented regular debriefings and access to mental health resources. These initiatives foster resilience and reinforced a culture of openness and mutual support. The hospital also prioritized transparent communication with patients and families. We developed clear channels for sharing information about environmental safety measures and incident responses. Patient advisory groups were engaged to provide feedback and participate in safety planning, strengthening trust and collaboration. Leadership recognized that sustaining these improvements required embedding a culture of vigilance and continuous learning. Safety committees were restructured to include representatives from diverse disciplines, ensuring broad perspectives in decision-making. Quality improvement initiatives were aligned with environmental health goals, integrating these priorities into the hospital's strategic framework. The outbreak served as a catalyst for innovation. We partnered with academic institutions to develop research projects aimed at advancing detection technologies and understanding the health effects of low-level environmental exposures in healthcare settings. These collaborations contributed to the evolving body of knowledge guiding safer hospital design and operation. Throughout this transformation, the memory of the patients affected in Room 312 remained central. Their experiences underscored the human impact of environmental safety lapses and motivated sustained commitment to excellence. We honored their journeys by dedicating resources to patient-centered care enhancements and support services tailored to those with environmental sensitivities. The lessons learned extended beyond St. Agnes Hospital. We shared our findings and revised protocols with regional health authorities and professional networks, contributing to broader efforts to enhance hospital environmental safety standards. Conferences and workshops provided forums for disseminating knowledge and fostering dialogue among healthcare leaders and experts. Reflecting on this journey, I was struck by the interplay of science, empathy, and organizational commitment required to address such a complex challenge. The outbreak illuminated vulnerabilities, but also revealed the strength of collaboration and the capacity for growth in the face of adversity. The experience reinforced the vital importance of humility in medicine and healthcare leadership. No system is immune to unforeseen threats, and preparedness demands constant vigilance, adaptability, and openness to learning. It reminded me that patient safety encompasses not only clinical care, but the entirety of the environment in which healing occurs. As St. Agnes Hospital moved forward, these enduring lessons shaped our identity and practices. The outbreak in room 312 became a touchstone for quality and safety initiatives, a reminder that excellence in healthcare is a dynamic pursuit requiring dedication, innovation, and compassion. For me personally, this chapter deepened my commitment to interdisciplinary collaboration and patient-centered care. It underscored the need to approach each challenge with scientific rigor, tempered by empathy for those we serve. The journey through uncertainty and discovery strengthened my resolve to lead with both humility and determination. The story of Room 312 remains a powerful testament to the complexity of healthcare and the ongoing quest to protect and heal. It is a narrative of mystery, resilience, and transformation, one that continues to inspire vigilance and hope within our hospital and beyond. The outbreak in room 312 at St. Agnes Hospital left an enduring imprint on every aspect of our institution, reshaping how we approach patient care, environmental safety, and interdisciplinary collaboration. The lessons we learned through this perplexing and challenging experience continue to guide our vigilance and humility in confronting unknown medical threats. In the aftermath, the hospital culture evolved profoundly. Staff across all departments embraced a heightened awareness of the complex interplay between environment and health. We recognized that infection control protocols, while essential, represent only one facet of patient safety. Environmental factors, chemical, physical, and biological, must be integrated into our vigilance. This holistic perspective became embedded in daily practice, influencing everything from maintenance planning to clinical assessments. Interdisciplinary cooperation emerged as a cornerstone of our response and ongoing preparedness. The task force we established to investigate the outbreak included experts from infectious diseases, environmental engineering, epidemiology, neurology, toxicology, and facilities management. Their diverse expertise enabled us to approach the problem from multiple angles, fostering innovative solutions. This model of collaboration has since been institutionalized, ensuring that complex challenges are met with comprehensive, coordinated efforts. The families of affected patients remain a poignant reminder of the human dimension behind any medical mystery. Their trust, patience, and resilience inspired our team throughout the investigation and continue to motivate our commitment to empathy and transparency. We learned that communication is not merely about conveying information, but about building relationships grounded in honesty and respect, especially when answers are uncertain. The outbreak also reinforced the importance of humility in medicine. Despite advances in technology and knowledge, some conditions defy easy explanation. Room 312's illness challenged our assumptions and protocols, reminding us that uncertainty is an inherent part of healthcare. Embracing this uncertainty with openness and curiosity fuels the continuous pursuit of understanding and improvement. In practical terms, the experience led to tangible improvements in hospital safety infrastructure. Enhanced environmental monitoring systems, rigorous maintenance oversight, and comprehensive staff training programs were implemented. These measures have strengthened our ability to detect and respond to subtle environmental hazards before they impact patient health. Moreover, the outbreak spurred ongoing research collaborations aimed at elucidating the effects of low-level environmental exposures in vulnerable populations. By sharing our experiences and data with the broader medical community, we contribute to a collective knowledge base that benefits patients beyond our walls. As I reflect on the journey from the first puzzling case in room 312 to the multifaceted response that followed, I am reminded of the delicate balance between knowledge and uncertainty that defines medicine. Each patient teaches us something new, challenging us to expand our understanding and compassion. The mystery of room 312 was not just a clinical puzzle, but a profound lesson in the limits and possibilities of medical science. That lesson shapes my daily practice. I approach each patient with a blend of scientific rigor and empathy, aware that beneath every symptom lies a story that may defy expectations. The experience has deepened my commitment to collaborative inquiry, patient-centered care, and a relentless quest to uncover hidden truths. Room 312's story is a testament to the resilience of patients, the dedication of healthcare teams, and the power of interdisciplinary cooperation. It highlights the necessity of vigilance, not only against known threats, but also against the unknown, the unseen, and the unexpected. This vigilance is the heartbeat of patient safety and the foundation of medical progress. As medicine advances, new challenges will arise, reminding us that our journey is ongoing. The experience at St. Agnes Hospital underscores the importance of approaching each challenge with humility, curiosity, and collaboration. It is a call to remain ever watchful and ever compassionate. The patients whose lives intersected with room 312 will forever be part of our hospital's legacy. Their courage and the lessons their cases imparted continue to inspire us to strive for excellence in care and to embrace the mysteries that medicine inevitably presents. In the end, room 312 symbolizes more than a location. It embodies the delicate interplay between knowledge and uncertainty, science and humanity. It reminds us that medicine is a continual exploration, guided by the enduring commitment to heal, to understand, and to care.